and that was the person of Idaken Uselu. And that, of course, you know that Idaken is his heir apparent, the heir apparent to the throne. And actually, the reason he did that was because he did not trust all these people. He knew who they were. He knew who the, Uzama were. He knew a lot about them. So he didn't trust them. And also, because of what they did to his father, Oba.
The fact is that there is actually no group that are kingmakers in Benin. We don't have it in our culture.
Thanks for clicking on this channel. Please subscribe to FO's blog history, and click on the notification button so that whenever we upload a new video you will be notified. There are no kingmakers in Benin Kingdom. The Uzama are not kingmakers and not Oba's chiefs. The Uzama, otherwise known as Adian Nene, the four elders, were the four pillars originated long ago during the reign of Ogiso Ngodo. The Ogiso at that time picked the four elders, Idi and Nene, to help him administer the country. They were Aliha, Edohan, Aro, and Ahalo Nehe. Their position was not hereditary at that time, but when any of them died, the Ogiso would give the title to another person. When it came to the time of Ogiso Oriagba, 685 to 712 AD, he added 1 to the number to make them 5. He added Izomo to them and made their position to be hereditary. They were called Adionizan, the 5 elders. They ensured that Ogiso kings were protected and the next Ogiso to be crowned was enthroned accordingly. Before Owodo, who was the last Ogiso, died, 1100 AD, the position of Izomo was no longer in existence. They became 4 again. It was the Adian Nene that made it possible for Evian to rule the country in about 1100 AD to 1170 AD, because of what he did by killing the man-eating animal called Osigan. When the Adian Nene found that Ogi Amin was mismanaging the country and opposing the restoration of the monarchy, they went to Ife to bring back Ikaladarhan, the only son of Ogiso Owodo, who was exiled. Please sit down and watch Izomo Kakadu as he gives further explanation of the Uzamas. Also, the Oba of Benin seized the opportunity of launching of his Red Book to correct some common errors of poor translation of expression in Benin language, that is associated with cultural norms and practices in Benin Kingdom. He also talks about inaccurate and poor narrations of Benin's history, bordering on distortion of historical facts. Please sit down and watch the 2 videos.
Uzamas of Benin Kingdom. The Uzama is a retinue of elders, a group of elders, 7 to be precise. A lot of people call them chiefs. People know them as chiefs, but they are not actually chiefs, and I'm going to make sure I do not refer to them as chiefs in this video because that would be degrading to them. When you say someone is a chief or Jaime, it means that the Oba of Benin calls this person and say, for whatever reason, maybe for their achievements or for who they are or their contributions to the kingdom, and say, I give you this title, and hands over these to this person. So this person becomes a chief or Okaim Oba. But in the case of the Uzama, it wasn't. So it was different, So that is why they are not Oba's chiefs. They are Edion. That is why at some point they were called Edionene, and at some other point they were called Edionisen, before the name Uzama actually was used to refer to them. Now, there is no way, it will be very difficult rather to understand all of this without taking you back to the historical background of this group of people. So let's see how the origin and the metamorphosis of the Uzama. I guess most of you understand or know. If you don't, now you should know that we consider this as the second dynasty of Benin monarchy. Second dynasty, that is the Oba dynasty. And this dynasty began around 11 AD. Whereas we had a first dynasty which actually ushered in this second dynasty, and that was the era of Ogiso and not Oba. We had a 31 Ogiso, starting from Ogiso Igodo or Oba Ogodo to the last one, Ogiso Owodo. Understand as well that before Ogiso Igodo, what you know as Benin Kingdom was actually a kind of conglomerate of quarters, or should I say villages, about 33 of them, 33 of them that came together as one. And each quarter had what we refer to as Odion. And this Odion was regarded as the Odion way. What this means is that the oldest person in every quarter was given the mantle of leadership. That is, the oldest person will be there. It still exists today. If you go to most of our communities, the eldest person is considered the Odion way. That is how it was until one of them thought it wise. It may be born out of ambition or whatever, but he thought it wise to have one person to lead the 33 quarters and be the head as the ruler. So what he did was to call all of these Ejionwe together. He expressed his, proposal. He told them his dream, what he was thinking, and actually tried to seek their permission. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of convincing. In my opinion, I think maybe some never agreed, but somehow it went through. The Ejionwe supported him, and he became the first ruler. And this is Ogiso Igodo, who actually was the first Ogiso of the first dynasty. That was when the kingdom was named Igodo Migodo. Now, after Igodo, sorry, I have to say this. Igodo actually did this. The elders, the Ejionwere, actually agreed to this because Igodo promised them something. He told them that he would make sure that he also solidified their position, that they were going to remain and help him in the administration of the kingdom. Somehow, Igodo failed to carry out his part of the bargain. But it was after Igodo had joined the ancestors and the Ogiso A, who was actually Igodo's grandson, Igodo's grandson A was the second Ogiso. He was actually the one who fulfilled his father's promises. So what he did was to call only four out of these 33 Ejionwe, and give them that mantle of leadership and call them Ejion. So they were like co-administrators with him. So it was just like, sorry, I have to use this. Let's say a Facebook group where you have admins. You have admins, maybe about 5 to 10 admins. So all the admins are supposed to be equal, But so the Ogiso was just the head admin amongst the admin. So that was what A did with the 4 elders. And these 4 elders were Oliha, Edoen, El, and Iholonire. These were the 4 elders A brought together and fulfilled his grandfather's promise with. The beat to the time of Orire. After A was Orire, that is the 3rd Ogiso, it happened that Orire did not have a successor. He didn't have an heir apparent. So after his demise, after he joined the ancestors, we had an interregnum. The throne was empty for 285 years. 285 years. So it came to the time after 285 years, these same elders, Olia, Eo, Edoen, in no particular order, and Iholonire, came together and said, look, we have to do something about this. Because if there is no Ogiso, there will not be Olia, there will not be Edoen. So in a way, they were also trying to reawaken or resurrect their own position and say, look, we have to do something. We have to make sure that we find a ruler. This kingship continues. So what they did was to go back to the former system of Ejionwe. So they said, we have 33 quarters. So why don't we look for the Ejionwe of every quarter to become king? At his demise, the oldest among the Ojonwe would become the next king. Now, they initiated this system and it lasted for a very long time. In fact, it gave birth to 19 different Ogiso, 19 of them. But when it got to the turn of Ogiso Oriagba again became kind of ambitious, and he thought that the system was not working well. And the primary reason was because all of those 19 Ogiso that came before him actually didn't do much. They didn't do much. Normally, one of the greatest Ogiso who ever lived was Ogiso A. He did a lot. But after Orire, the other 19 Ogiso before Oriagba didn't do much, and that was simply because they were always very old. Because they chose the oldest people. They chose the oldest Ejonwere from different quarters. So they were very old. Most of them did not even last on the throne. So they couldn't actually do much. There was no much impact on the kingdom. So Oriagba called these 4 elders and said, look, how about we go back to the former system where the son, the first son of the king, takes over the throne at the demise of the king. And that is because if you actually look at it, you see that the heir apparent, that is the first son of the king, would know a whole lot more about kingship. We know a whole lot more about ruling or rulership. Okay, unlike maybe one old Ojonwe who is just made king just because of his age. You know, he convinced these elders and they actually yielded, but they also had a bargain with him. And they say, now you are saying that when you go, or when any Ogiso go, that the first son who is supposed to be the apparent will take the throne. What about us? So if we need to agree to this, you also have to solidify our position in this manner. So he agreed, and they actually took an oath. So that is the 5 of them now: Ogiso Oriagba, Olia, Edoen, Eo, and Eolonire took an oath, and they swore to this to make sure that they stick to this bond, you know, to this agreement. Okay, so that was that. Oriagba, after taking this oath with the Ejonene, added another member to them, and that is the person of Uzama. Yeah, which is where I come from the family of Uzama, obviously. Yeah, so added Uzama to them, and they became 5. So that is when they became Edionisen. Now, following from the above, you see that at this point they are still 5 in number. I mean, the Uzama is 5 in number, and this is the time they were referred to as Edionisen, that is the 5 elders. But we all know, of course, that Uzama is called Uzama Nion, meaning Uzama the 7th, and that means that is because the group is made up of 7 members, 7 different members. So the question is, how did they become 7? Okay, we all know how the first dynasty, and then if you don't know, let me quickly summarize. So our last Ogiso was Ogiso Owodo. Ogiso Owodo had one son who was to be the heir apparent by the name of Ikaladeran. Something happened and Ikaladeran was to be executed, but Okadioma, that is the executioners who were supposed to execute him, pardoned him, you know. So he left, he ran away, ended up at Ile-Ife, today's Ile-Ife, became king there. His name was Idoduwa. Some people call him Izodua. So the name was corrected to Oduduwa. So after he left, something also happened back in Igodomigodo kingdom, and the father, Ogiso Owodo, was banished. So the throne became empty. The Edionisen had to look for the heir apparent, because the primary function, the oath that the Dionysian swore, which is today's Uzama, the oath that they swore was to make sure that the continuity of the monarchy is never cut at any time. That is to say, they must make sure that the throne is never empty. There must be an Ogiso, or a monarch, or Oba, or whatever it is you might have to call it now. So when the throne was empty, they had to send a search party to go and look for a Caldera. But before then, because it was a long time, they had to, find a way, something like an alternative, right? So what they did was to appoint the person of Evian, he was an elderly statesman, to be an administrator over the kingdom before the return of the Caldera. So eventually they got to meet Oduduwa by the name of the Caldera. He was too old, so he had to send Oromiyan with them. So they brought Oromiyan, that's this Uzama or Dionysian, brought Oromiyan back to Benin to become king. So like I said, it's just like maybe a Facebook group, admins of a Facebook group where you have the head admins. All of them are admin. So Ogiso, or the ruler or the monarch, and this Dionysian, they be one and the same. It's just that the Ogiso now can be on top, like they be guy, something like that. So because of this, they did not have much regard for the king, and that was a problem because they saw him as some kind of mate, or what do you call it? A pair. That's pairs, So now, Oromiyan came and left. After Oromiyan was Eweka the First. After Eweka the First was Uwahwan, and after Uwahwan was Ehemie. Then after Ehemie came Ewedo, by Ewedo. Now, all of these rulers, all of these Oba, and even the Ogiso that came before them were actually kind of curbed in one small circle. Remember, the palace as a den was located in Uzama, today Siloko Road. For those of you who are familiar with Benin City, if you know Siloko Road, once you enter Siloko Road, you see one big land, traditional land to the right before Travis School. That was the palace as a den, and that palace was located within, around, or no, not around, within, the circle, should I say circle of this Dionysian. If you look at Uzama Palace, it was closed. Look at Olia's Palace, is it a hall, or like that? So Ewedo did not want any of this. Ewedo wanted more. So Ewedo did not want to be treated the same way other Oba and Ogiso were treated. So what Ewedo did was to first of all move the palace from Uzama to the present day location, Ogbe. He wanted to leave their circle. He wanted to leave that location so that they would not interfere much. They would not no longer see him as equals, So he wanted to show them that, hey, look, I'm Oba, I'm the king. You need to give me that respect. You need to respect me as every other Edo man respects me. Apart from the fact, of course, you had some privileges as the Dion, So he moved the palace. And he did a whole lot of other things. He made some rules. In fact, he cut them into size. He reduced their power to the barest minimum. And one of the things he did also was to create the position of the Iyase. The full meaning of Iyase is Iyase, Iyona Sewa, Ra, Niya Sewa, meaning that this one now take personal. And that position was actually created to take the functions of the Uzama, to perform the functions of Uzama. So it will seem as if, you're no longer that important. If you just misbehave, there's this one person that will just do everything that you're doing. You understand that? So that was how Iyase's position was created. And then he referred to them as Emanizama. Emanizamama. In simple translation, people who don't respect somebody or something like that, or people who don't revere him. So that was how the name Uzama came about. It was at some point called Azama. Later it was corrupted to Uzama. So if you look at the term Uzama, it is actually denigrating to them. It's derogatory in some kind of way, so that even some of them still wouldn't want you to call them Uzama. No, they will not accept it, because it's actually a derogatory term to refer to them. See, I'm very sorry, I have to take you back. There's a point I have to make. I have to take you back to the era of Eweka I. During the reign of Eweka I, he added another number. If you remember, following what we've been saying so far, at the end of the first dynasty, the Ogiso dynasty, the group was constituent of 5 members. Olia, Edohe, Eo, Eholo, Nire, and Uzama. They were 5. Uzama, they were 5. Now, during the reign of Eweka I, he added Oloton. Actually, Oloton was someone who was sent with Oromia. I mean, when Oduduwa was sending his son or grandson to Benin to come and become king, he didn't send just his son. He sent someone with his son, and his primary task was to make sure that his son was protected, and his son became king, became Oba in Benin Kingdom. So after Oromia and Eweka became king, he looked at Oloton. The reason Oloton was sent was to make sure that Oromia was protected or safe, and to make sure that he became king. It was sort of akin or similar to the function, or the primary function or job of the Ejonise. Just added them, go join your people. So they became 6, all right, as at the time of Eweka I. It got to the time of Oba Ogidigan. Oba the Great. He's a popular one, the greatest Oba is said to be the greatest Oba who has ever ruled, whether Oba or so who has ever ruled the kingdom. Now, during his time, he added another member who happens to be the last member of the Uzama, and that was the person of Edaiken Uselu. And that, of course, you know that Edaiken is his heir apparent, the heir apparent to the throne. And actually, the reason he did that was because he did not trust all these people. He knew who they were. He knew who the Uzama were. He knew a lot about them. So he didn't trust them. And also because of what they did to his father, Oba Owen. In one of my on TikTok, did something on Owen, who was actually stoned to death by his chiefs because of what happened, because he actually killed his Iyase. So he was stoned to death. Because of that, this man did not trust them 100%. So he wanted his own son to be in their midst. He wanted to know what they were doing. He wanted to know everything. He wanted to make sure they weren't plotting anything, Oba Benin was a very smart and, great Oba. So that was how the last member was added to the group, Uzama. That was when they became Uzama Niyo, meaning Uzama the 7th. Someone called me one time. He said, my father is Uzama too. I said, oh really? What family are you from? He said, I'm from the family of Ogiamie. Ogiamie. I said, oh, okay. He said, but how come Ogiamie is not one of the members of Uzama Niyo? I said, okay, don't worry, I will explain. I did explain to him, so I'm going to explain to everyone. So you need to understand that as of now, we have 2 different Uzama. There is Uzama Niyo, meaning Uzama the 7th, who are the oldest. Like I said, they are the oldest. They've been there from time immemorial. And then we also have Uzama Nibie. Uzama Nibie. We already know about Uzama Nyon. We'll be talking about them, the oldest and the strongest. They've been there from time immemorial. So now, who are the Uzama Nibie? It happened that during the reign of OBA'S, it was in one Ugie festival, Igwe festivals, we all know it. The Uzama were supposed to perform a particular function or rite, but somehow they did not show up. And this came shocking to OBA'S. So what he did was to kind of create alternative, or should I say proxy, or deputy, so that if anything like this happened, there would be a set of people assisting them who would deputize, who would do it when they are not there. So that was how Uzama Nibie was created. Uzama Nibie actually is cut from Uzama Niyabian. Uzama Niyabian. To bian means to shove them. As in, now this Uzama now they push them away, they command them, they shove them away. So that is Uzama Nibie. So I guess you understand now the Uzama Nyon and Uzama Nibie. So the Uzama Nibie are actually chiefs. They were chiefs before. They were not just brought from anywhere. They were chiefs before. They had their chieftaincy titles before. So they were now given second assignments to do. And they only function when, if for example, God forbid it ever happens, if for example the Uzama Nyon, for whatever reason, refuse to perform their function. So we have another body, a group of another 7 chiefs that will do exactly what they are supposed to do. So that question, I would answer yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. And the reason for that is, in my own opinion, I would say that at some point in time, the Uzama Nyon were actually kingmakers. They could be referred to as kingmakers. Why would I say that? At some point they were very powerful for a very long time. They were very powerful until the time of Oba who actually cut them to size. They were very powerful. They actually had the power to make and unmake kings. So this infers that if as an heir apparent, you have to be in their good books. You have to be in their good books. You have to be a very good boy. If you are not a good boy, if you are against any one of them, or if they plot against you, they will mess you up. It happened a couple of times where they helped either together as a group, or maybe some members of the Uzama, or even one of them would help maybe another person, maybe the second son of the demised Oba, or the third son, or someone else, to become the Oba. It happened a couple of times. So at this time, we could say that they were kingmakers. Still, you cannot compare them to like your Messi. If you look at the Yoruba system, of course, some of us know the Oyo Messi. The Oyo Messi was a group, I don't know if they still exist, I'm sorry. They were a group of chiefs who actually checked the SSCs of the Alafin. And in turn, they were checked by the Ogboni. I don't want to go too far into that, but you need to understand that the Oyo Messis kind of made the kings. They made their kings. In fact, there are some things that the king could do when they felt tired, when they felt they didn't need the Alafin any longer. They would present the Alafin calabash to go and kill himself, to go and commit suicide, and bring in someone else. You understand what I'm talking about? So those are the people you could actually call kingmakers. But in the case of Uzama Nyon, even as at the time they had all of these power and influences, they just did it trying to play politics, trying to bring in anybody that would favor them or for whatever reason. So in that way, we could say that they were actually kingmakers at the time. But from the time of Oba Ewedo, no, they don't make kings. Kings are born. Obas are born. I already know, as of now, I know the next Oba. I know he's going to become Oba if in time Oba Ratokbe if he joins his ancestors, I know who's going to become the next Oba. After the next Oba, I can also tell you the person who's going to become next Oba. It is like that. So Obas are not made, they are born. So it is wrong to call them kingmakers. But at some point in time, they could be referred to as kingmakers.
The fact is that there is actually no group that are kingmakers in Benin. We don't have it in our culture. Because in Benin tradition, a king is born and not made or chosen by any individual. This group is referred to as Uzama or the Edion in bracket, Edion, headed by Chief Olia.
So it's going to be two different set of Uzama, right? So we have the Uzama. I'm going to name the members according to their hierarchy. It is number one of them is Olia. Number two is Edohe. Number three is Uzama. It used to be El. But I'll tell you what happened. So number one is Olia. Number two, Edohe. Number three is Uzama. Number four is now El. Then number five is Iholonire. Number six is Oloton. And number seven, Yedake no Selu. That is the heir apparent. Now I did mention that El used to be the third member in a hierarchy in Uzama. Now what happened? There's a proverb. It's a proverb and it is a parable as well by the Edo people. They will say, "Owe benikbe nezomoya diero." Emi normal say me. Oh, sorry, not like that. Owe benikbe emi normal say me erezomo ya diero. Now that is actually born from an event that occurred during, I think, was it of Akinzwa the first. It happens that after the activities of the day, the Oba, of course, was with the Uzama. So he decided, I'll bring food for my Edion. Let them enjoy, let them refresh themselves, bring food and drink. So when they were about having their feast, when they were about eating, the messenger brought the bowl for them to wash their hands. He first of all went to Olia, who is the number one member, the first member of the Uzama. Olia washed his hand. From Olia, he moved to Edoen. Edoen washed his hand. Then he moved to El. Now, there are actually two different versions to this. One of the versions say that as at the time, Chief El was a young man, way younger than Chief Uzama. Like Chief Uzama was one old man. Out of respect, the guy was just being civil and cultured, So out of respect, Chief El said, like, come, go and give a part. And give a part the water, let him wash his hand. Then Chief Uzama washed his hand before El. Omonoba was looking, just observing. They did all of that and they feasted. After they were done, the Oba stood up and told them, he said, from henceforth, the way you washed your hands, the procession by which you washed your hand, that is how your seniority, that is how your hierarchy will follow from today. So, because Chief Uzama washed his hand, Ra-Ojo Uzama washed his hand before Ero, automatically he became senior to Ero in her hierarchy. Like I said, that was one version of the story. Another version says that when Ero was about washing his hand, that Uzama said something, made an utterance, something that was annoying, something that was provocative, and because of that, Ero said, please go and just give him the water to wash his hands. And Uzama actually did before Ero. So that was after everything. Oba made that pronouncement. So this is a new hierarchy. Whereas before this time it was Olia, Edon, Ero the third. But after this time it is now Olia, Edon, Uzama before Ero. So those are the members. Those are the 7 members of Uzama Nirion, Uzama the 7th. And then for Uzama Nibie, who were created, to deputize for Uzama Nirion, their members are Inenigweomo, Iamanigweomo, Ogiego, you have Ogiamie, then you have a holo. There's a holo Nigweomo, and then a holo Nigeduma. So these are the members of both Uzama Nirion and Uzama Nibie. Thank you very much for staying here with me. It has been a great time with you. For those of you who stayed till the end, of course. So please, if you find this video interesting and edifying, please do not forget to just press like, all right? And if you...
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I crave your indulgence to further appreciate in some of the national television stations for airing a documentary only a couple of days ago, which I believe was meant to give publicity to this book launch, which actually lent credence in a very strange manner to the very essence of the compilation of this book. The essence of publishing this book, particularly at this point in our history, is obvious in many respects. One of which is the common error of poor translation of expressions in Benin language associated with our cultural norms and practices. I observed in the recent documentary held in the electronic and social media, where interviews were conducted that featured inaccurate and poor narration of our history, bordering on distortion of historical facts. An example is that from that documentary, it was alluded that the Daken of Uselu, who is the crown prince, is a member of a group of kingmakers. The fact is that there is actually no group that are kingmakers in Benin. We don't have it in our culture. Because in Benin tradition, a king is born and not made or chosen by any individual. This group is referred to as Uzama Nirion, or the Edion in bracket, Edion, headed by Chief Olia, who merely performs the function of crowning the new Oba at the right time. Olia is in our midst, I believe, so he's still functioning there. In that same documentary, another narration, I'm sure many of you might have seen it. It was all over the news. It meant well, no doubt, it meant well, but we needed to correct some of these distortions. In that same documentary, another narration was that the Daken was referred to as a duke. In bracket, in the translation to Benin, the language is a Nogi. The country is not a Nogi in our tradition. The Daken is not a duke, but the crown prince presiding over a territory in the kingdom called Uselu at the right time, when the time comes, who derives his authority directly from the Oba of Benin and has power to confer chieftaincy titles on persons as prince of the palace of the Daken of Uselu Again, it draws the power from the Oba of Benin, from the palace in Benin, the main Oba's palace. Further distortion of our history was the chief stating that the eldest son of the Oba is sent to Selu to hold forth for Edaken Uselu. Wrong. The eldest son was strategically sent to hold forth for the recalcitrant subject of the then Oba called Ike. This is the history. Who was lured into battle outside the kingdom in order to be rid of his insubordination. Hence the name or title Edayinike, shortened to Edaike. I believe this historical record is also in this red book we just launched, or we're about to launch. The eldest son of the Oba eventually officially assumes the traditional office of Edaike Uselu. Put differently, the eldest son of the Oba is Edaike Uselu. So he's not holding forth for Edaike Uselu. He is Edaike Uselu by definition. Again, is the narration that was made that everything begins and ends in the palace. The correct position, I think this was an attempt to explain what Egwai may say, the daughter, Egwai may say. In an attempt to correct it, this explanation was given in that same documentary. Again, I don't think it was quite the correct position. The correct position is that if there are issues among the subjects out there, or citizens, communities, villages, towns, they on their own volition approach the palace to seek for what Captain Okweoba Dausa may earlier referred to as conflict resolution. Seek for the resolution of these disputes, and whatever resolution is approved by the palace is final and is usually never disputed, subject to, of course, further review or any review in light of contradicting information, coming up, which in Benin is referred to as a Egwai, literally translated, all matters end at the palace, not all matters begin and end at the palace. So I thought I should clarify some of these issues. Now, permit me the little immodesty and the unequivocally declaring that the book we have assembled here to unveil, the Benin Monarchy, an anthology of Benin history, aka the Red Book, is the magnum opus